Months ago, Subway dropped Fogle as a spokesman.
Yeah, we wanted to get some perspective on how companies like Subway would deal with a public relations nightmare like this. So joining us now is Patrick Hillmann. He's the Vice President of LEVICK Communications, and I guess this is Crisis Management 101, or maybe it's an advanced course. I'm not sure.
It is. You know, to be honest with you guys, 101 probably is kind of understating it. I don't think there are too many organizations who have gone through a crisis quite like this.
Because he was such the front man?
The allegations are so intense, and you're right. For the last 15 years, Jared has been the face of the entire corporation. So they have a lot of brand, investment in this guy.
So what do you do if you're a company right now? Let's just say some CEO is out there of his company and he's thinking about having, you know, this charming guy who really represents what his company should be about. And this was about weight loss for Jared. What do you tell those companies? Don't put all your eggs in one basket? I mean, how do you approach that?
You know, to be honest with you, that's exactly what you tell them. Any corporation should have a whole stable of spokespeople that you can go to for this exact reason. I don't want to sound too dystopian, but to be honest with you, we're flawed. Human beings are flawed people. And in the end, eventually you're going to let somebody down. And for that reason, you have to make sure that you're not having everything invested into one individual.
Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what LEVICK does, because we've got a lot of crisis communication groups here in Washington. You know, you get the call from your client and they say, we are in deep trouble. You fly a team out to wherever they are, and then what?
To be honest with you, it's different every occasion. For the most part, it's sitting down and first getting the facts out. What a lot of people think is that they watch TV, they see scandal, and they think we sit down and we start telling what to do, and there's all sorts of things being seen, but really it's understanding what the facts are at hand. People oftentimes don't understand what the actual facts are in a crisis, and if you don't understand that before you communicate, you start to make mistakes.
Well, let me ask you this, because this Subway, let's break this down. Say Subway calls you in and we know enough of the facts as far as the court of public opinion. This is big-time damage for reputation. What do you do in this case to try and spin this favorably for Subway, but there's nothing you could do for Jared? He's on his own.
Right.
First of all, there is no spin anymore. The 24-hour news cycle and the proliferation of Facebook and social media has ended spin. It just doesn't work. What you do is you make sure you get out there in front of it and you'll be very forthcoming in information. I look at Subway and right now I'm not seeing them coming forward and admitting the situation they're in. The first thing they did is they said, we're breaking our contract with Jared Fogle, and we have no other comment.
And would you agree with that? Drop Jared first?
It's hard for me to always say because I'm not in the room with them, but as a crisis manager, that's not my first inclination. For me, I look at this and I say, okay, we have to admit to the general public and to our audiences that we are in this situation, that we are focused on getting through the situation, and that in the end, we are still a company who's going to provide a healthy alternative to fast food.
But if you don't dump Jared, I mean, that's huge. I mean, as a company, you got to distance yourself as far as you can from something like that.
But maybe you start out by saying, we are terribly troubled by this, our organization's upset by this, and you show a little...
That's absolutely it. You have to admit the situation that you're in. Admit that this is a horrific situation that you're finding yourself addressing. Address the audiences that you need to in a public way. But then again, you have to move forward because if the corporation itself can't move itself out of crisis, then the general public will always perceive them as being in crisis. And that's a huge mistake.
Going forward, does this hurt Subway or are they going to be okay?
Time will tell. But history shows that if you manage a crisis effectively, you can get through, and the actual effect to your long-term reputation and your bottom line, more importantly, is often pretty minimal.
You think Subway's going to start giving money to organizations that fight back against child exploitation? I mean, is that something you'd advise?
I don't think they're there yet, but that's certainly a tool in their belt they could look to in the future.
Yeah.
Great perspective.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Patrick Hillmann with LEVICK Communications. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Still ahead for us here at 4 o'clock, the push to stop the rise in gun violence in D.C., how some city leaders